A congressional candidate joining us. He's actually joined me on the show a couple of other times, and he is joining us by phone today or by Skype, so we'll get to see him in a moment. His name is Jim Simpson, and he's running for Congress in Maryland. So they did not have their primary yesterday. Their primary is coming up on April 28th, but he's running for Congress in a district where a Democrat currently holds that seat, and this is a guy I have talked with you about before. I'm excited to have him join us. Very quickly, I'll tell you, he's a widely published author and journalist. You can read a lot of his pieces on American Thinker, one of my favorite conservative websites, americanthinker.com. He's been writing and speaking for a long time on behalf of America. He actually first worked in the White House Office of Management and Budget, where he served on the director's personal economic staff and later as a budget analyst under Presidents Reagan, H.W. Bush, and Clinton. We'll forgive him the Clinton part, but yes, he worked in the White House. And he also is the author of a book, and the reason we've had him on the show before, author of the book, The Red-Green Axis, an existential threat to America and the world. It's a fabulous book that I want to encourage you to buy. But let us see if we have Jim Simpson ready to talk. There you are. Hello, sir.
Hey, Deb. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. I'm so glad you're running. So I have to tell you, you must have enjoyed watching all the Super Tuesday races yesterday. But I want to start with your race. You're running for Congress in Maryland. And I'm going to guess it's probably a plus something Democrat district. You don't have to say, but what
plus
is
11.
the plus 11? Okay, that's a bad number. But anyway, so I want to ask you, though, in this era where you've been so politically active for so many years, and you write and you speak and you write columns, but you're stepping up and running for Congress. So why are you doing that?
Well, because, all of the markers are there for this election. First of all, I believe it's probably the most consequential election, definitely in this century, perhaps in our nation's history, because it will determine the direction that we take for the next 4 years at least, and perhaps further. We could continue on the path that the Democrats have tried to chart for us, which will take us on the slow slide down to socialism and ultimately, I believe, communism, or we can continue the resurgence, the rebirth that has been created by President Trump over the past 3 years, despite all of the roadblocks they have continually put up against him. I mean, really, it's pretty amazing what he's been able to do, because honestly, he's done more than most presidents through their entire terms in the last 3 years. And he's done so many things that we've wanted, that we've begged for really decades, and things that have been promised to us, but then never delivered. So I'm just, he has really ignited the passions of this nation. And I love that report that you gave about California, because to me, that more than anything speaks to the mindset of our nation. And see, the same thing is true here in Maryland. Everybody is really getting exhausted with what the Democrats impose on us every year. I mean, we have a Republican governor who, by the way, has won in my district 2 times in a row with significant margins. But despite that, we have supermajority Democrats in both houses of the state legislature, and they impose taxes. They spend like there's no tomorrow, and the governor can object all he wants, and they just override his vetoes. They put in legislation. There's the U.S. Congress is now, the Nancy Pelosi House has just proposed a New Way Forward Act, which is essentially a No Borders Act. It's open borders writ large. And what happened in Maryland? They put forth numerous bills that do exactly the same thing. And Maryland is beset with one of the highest populations of illegal aliens and one of the highest populations of MS-13 in the nation. And those people are spreading out into the suburbs. They committed a murder last year right in downtown Towson, which is, a very suburban community.
Yes, it is.
And
Yeah.
it's just outrageous, and everybody's sick of it. People are fleeing the state just like they're fleeing California. I honestly don't know what possesses the Democrats to believe they could or even should inflict this stuff on us all the time. It's amazing.
It is. You remind me of one point I wanted to make in my first five. I'll quick say it right now. Even if it turns out that Joe Biden wins the nomination, which I don't know what's going to happen. I said yesterday or a couple of days ago, I don't think the Democrats want to let Joe Biden win it. I think they might let him sit in that seat as the presumptive nominee, but they don't want him there because they're worried about his mental acuity. They might put somebody else in. But even if he wins the nomination, and even if he wins the presidency, everyone who is on board with the Trump agenda needs to understand Biden is just playing the role for the party of the establishment, the centrist, the rational. If he's in that White House and he's got the Pelosi Congress and he's got the AOC Congress and he's got Democrats pushing him, he is not going to govern as a moderate. He served
No.
as Vice President Obama under Obama, who is not a moderate. Just saying to my listeners, don't draw any comfort from the idea that Biden might win the nomination. But back to you and your race, Jim. So I want to ask you something. I know you've talked a lot about immigration. I'm so glad you do. So you talk about the New Way Forward Act too, which is just basically open the borders and end it all. So what is it the Congress really needs to do to fix the overwhelming immigration problem in America? Do you have a broad idea of what you think Congress should do?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically the whole thing needs an overhaul. First of all, we need to we need to complete the wall and put an absolute block on any and all illegal immigration. And, there's a lot of illegal immigration that slips under the rug as legal immigration. For example, temporary protected status. And, there's about 400,000 people in the United States under temporary protected status, which they're given when there is a war or some environmental disaster in their home countries, and they flee here as illegal aliens, and then their country is given temporary protected status, which allows them to operate here legally. And it's supposed to go on for 18 months, but then at the end of 18 months, their temporary status gets renewed for another 12 or another 18 months. And consequently, most of the people under temporary protected status have been here for decades. It's a de facto amnesty. And of course, we have the DACA situation. Most of those people are now in their 20s and 30s. They're not kids, and they don't need to be here any more than any other illegal alien needs to be here. To solve our illegal immigration problem, we need to absolutely ban and enforce any and all welfare to illegals. That includes medical care. We need to absolutely end illegal immigration hiring, and that means enforcing the law against employers who hire illegals. And if those two things happen, most illegal aliens will self-deport because there's no reason for them to be here. They can't collect welfare. They can't get special medical benefits. Right now, when they're sick, they go to the emergency room because for them, it's free. And so emergency rooms are jam-packed with people there for common colds and whatever. And then they can't get employment. So there's no reason for that. Those are the things, if we would just enforce our darn laws, we'd get a lot more done. So that's as far as illegal immigration goes, and building the wall, absolutely critical. And then on legal immigration, we have been allowing over 1 million people a year since the 1980s. And most of those people come here for family reunification, which is a polite way of saying chain migration. They're not here for employment purposes. About less than 150,000 have been coming here annually for employment purposes. So why don't we limit our legal immigration to those who come here for employment purposes? 150,000. Jared Kushner has proposed that we continue to allow 1 million legal aliens to come here every year. We don't need all that. There are plenty of people in the United States ready and willing to fill the jobs. The only problem is that employers may have to pay them a little bit more money. But that's not even a problem if it's applied nationwide,
Right.
because then there's nothing for them to, they can't compete with others who are using foreign labor. There's the price becomes constant, and it would be reflected perhaps in slightly higher prices to us as consumers, but that's a price I'd be willing to pay to get our country back on track. Because the entire immigration agenda, whether it's legal or illegal, both of them have been contrived over time by the Democrats to permanently change our society through demographics becoming destiny. And it's happened in Texas, it's happening all over the country, and the Democrats know if they continue to get the kind of immigrants they want in here, very welfare dependent, needy, third world immigrants, they will continue to expand their voting base to the point where they won't even have to have elections anymore. They'll just win by default, and that will be the end of this country, because those Democrats that want those things are the same Democrats that want what Bernie Sanders want what AOC wants. They want to turn this into a socialist state of the very worst kind, and we have literally no idea how bad this could be.
I couldn't agree more. I was going to mention to you, President Trump uses expressions sometimes in speaking about immigration reform, merit-based immigration. And when he first used that term, of course, as the left, the Democrat media mob does on every topic, if there's some way to contort and manipulate it and sound like, oh, well, some people, because of the country they're from, they don't have merit. These are people lacking merit. But his point was very valid. Let's make the criterion upon which we decide who gets immigration, who gets granted a legal right to come here, be based on the merit, on their contribution to our society. So I take it you agree with that.
No, I absolutely do. I mean, I speak to, when I take a taxi, I speak to the Nigerian taxi driver or whoever it is. And you get people from all over the world who come here because of the American dream. They come here because they're inspired by our example. And, we are the most open, welcoming, prejudicial, unbiased country in the world, and as people, that's generally true as well. But we don't want to be saddled with other nations' problems, and that's what, to a large extent, has happened because, frankly, that's what the Democrats want, because that's their voting base.
Absolutely true, sir. I'm going to turn to a couple of the topics. So I'm going to let our listeners know about your campaign website. So we're speaking with Jim Simpson, congressional candidate from Maryland, CD2, Congressional District 2. You can find him on Twitter at James M. Simpson, and his website is jimsimpsonforcongress.com. So this is a guy who's going to run on the kind of ideas we talk about in this show. I want to ask you very quickly, though, changing topics away from your congressional race. So you and I had a mutual friend recently who was found having been shot and killed, named Phil Haney. And I talked about it on the day I heard the news. I talked about it on my show, and how originally the sheriff's department in California was calling it an apparent suicide, not realizing who he was. But now that they do realize, they're reinvestigating more thoroughly to uncover what really happened. So if you could speak briefly to how you knew Phil Haney, what he was all about, and what his death really means to the conservative movement.
Yeah. Well, Phil and I have known each other. We knew each other since he first came on the scene around 2016. He worked with a lot of the same people I did with the Center for Security Policy and others. Phil and I toured the country in 2017 in his RV for 3 weeks. And we got to know each other very well then, although we knew each other before. We've maintained a friendship ever since. Phil was just... Well, he's brilliant, for one thing, and he's very knowledgeable about Islamic terrorism and he had identified terrorists in our nation. And what the Obama administration did to him because of his effectiveness, I consider treasonous, literally treasonous. They investigated him 9 times. They deleted all the records that he had painstakingly developed over the years that identified Islamic terrorists in the United States and their organizations in the United States, and then shut him down, claiming that he was violating the civil rights of Muslims. It's crazy. He was hired to do that very thing, and then here they are investigating for doing his job so well. I wrote an article about that at American Thinker shortly after he died, and I spoke with his fiancée. I spoke with a number of people, and nobody who knows him believes that he would have committed suicide.
Right.
There's a slight chance that that's possible. He was facing a open heart surgery, and some of the drugs that they give you to prepare you for that can create suicidal ideation, supposedly. But I don't even know if he was taking any of those drugs or if he was even actually preparing for that. I know that they had discussed it, but his fiance and none of us, we just rejected it out of hand, and we made sure that the sheriff knew that this was just not acceptable. And of course, the sheriff did. You got to give them their due. He did say apparent, and he said that the investigation is ongoing. So suggesting that there wasn't a conclusion, but given the politics of his revelations in the book he wrote and the upcoming book that will be published shortly called National Security Meltdown, the national media lunged on that apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound as a way to just dismiss him. Oh, here's this conspiracy theorist who said something bad about Obama, but now he's killed himself.
Right,
Nothing to see here. Move along. He probably felt guilty about lying. That kind of narrative, and that's one of the reasons I pushed back so strongly against that in my American Thinker article, because Phil Haney was one of the most principled people I've ever met, perhaps the most principled person. He had no dog in that hunt. He doesn't want to make up stories just for fun. He would have much rather stayed in Department of Homeland Security doing his job. He is a devout Christian. He would not, under normal circumstances, ever consider taking his life. And so there's a lot of questions that really remain unanswered, and I just hope we get to the bottom of it, because that was just a horrible loss for all of us, a loss for the United States.
Absolutely was. And for our listeners to remind you, Phil Haney was actually one of the original founders of the Department of Homeland Security. This was formed right after 9/11, a year after 9/11, the effort to pull together resources in Washington that may not have adequately communicated with each other to keep America's homeland strong and safe. He'd been with the DHS for years. He was in his job at DHS. He came to uncover how under the Obama administration, more and more Islamist people friendly to the Islamist mission, were becoming active and involved at some level in the Obama administration. And this is what he tried to call attention to the American public about. And he actually, so he was investigated 9 times, to be clear, by the Obama administration, and always and each time completely cleared of wrongdoing. Ultimately had to have his retirement from DHS through a little bit of arm twisting by our wonderful friend, Congressman Louis Gohmert, to even put him in place. So to end up with this, so Phil Haney wrote the book, See Something, Say Nothing, basically talking about how, when you speak up, when you see something and then you say something, you're punished. See something, say nothing. Great book. And so with that, I have to tell you, Jim Simpson, I'm so glad you're running for Congress. I want to thank you for joining me today. And by the way, your article you mentioned was American Thinker about Phil Haney. That's also up at our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows. Drop down, list of links. You read that article. Great tribute to our good friend Phil Haney. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Debbie, thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Great to have you, sir.